Greetings to those who are on the Bite Diet. We tried to have a virtual lunch today, but didn't quite get anybody signed in for that. So hopefully we can find another time to do that next week where it works for most everybody. So the virtual lunch and the idea for the virtual lunch is really just to help you guys get your questions answered, as well as just to help you with some few tips along the way and make sure everybody's tracking with where we're headed. So I say that because if you're watching this video and you do have any questions as you're now 3 days into the Bite Diet Challenge, I'd love to hear what your questions are, because chances are you're dealing with a question that other people have asked but maybe not quite ready to ask yet. So so just encourage you to ask your questions, and feel free to text me. And I'm here for you. I'd love to answer those and also make sure everybody's going with it. So remember, this is the first week where we are eating normal, and you are counting your bites. So the whole idea of this first week is really just getting used to counting your bites and recording them in the journal, and as well as what you're eating. And that's sort of the biggest thing to overcome, because we really want you to get into that habit. That's super important, as well as so the better you keep track of your bites in your journal this week, the better we can help you in terms of coaching you how to maybe either adjust your diet and how to adjust the number of bites you're taking as well. So I talked with one of you this today, and you mentioned you like to eat popcorn one kernel at a time, or one popped piece at a time, and I would just say go with it this week. Don't worry about whether you're maximizing the size of your bite. That's not really the point. The whole point of the Bite Diet is each of the bites average themselves out through the day, and so we really just need to get sort of that standard measure this week of how many bites you're eating each day, so that we can adjust the number of bites next week to where it'll fit your life and help you fuel your activity. So really focus on trying to eat normal. And then I know what that's kind of like. It's like telling people to breathe normal, and suddenly you're thinking about breathing and you can't breathe normal, or telling people to blink normal, and suddenly you're thinking about blinking your eyes, and you're trying to like figure out when to blink and when not to. So I know it's kind of like eat normal. Well, that's all I'm just saying is eat what you would normally eat. Don't try to eat different foods. Don't try to eat different quantities. Just take the quantities and the foods you're currently eating, and count how many bites it takes to eat at meals and snacks and whatever you put in your mouth. So if it's water, you don't have to count water, but if it's anything besides water, even coffee, count your sips of coffee, whatever it is. And we just want to get a standard number of bites that you're taking each day, and track sort of when they're happening and how they make you feel, whether they make you feel full, hungry, overly stuffed, and so forth. And that way we can adjust the number of bites, and also time it also for when you are going to use your fuel to fuel your workouts and so forth. And so that's really important. So if you've got any questions, make sure you send them my way, but don't be afraid to ask. So so what I wanted to go through today on the Bite Diet virtual lunch was asking this question: what's working for you, and then what are the challenges you're facing. And then I want to go over some methods of counting bites. So since no one's here to share what's working and what's not working, I guess I'll kind of share what's working for me. And really what's worked for me in terms of getting myself back on the diet in the last month has really been just sort of thinking about what my goals are. And part of it's just the motivation. And for several times I've tried jumping back on the Bite Diet after 2016, when I first did this Bite Diet for 9 months. After that, I struggled to get back on it. And part of it was just the motivation. I had sort of this vague idea of where I wanted to get to, but now I kind of feel like I have more of a real goal with what I'm doing. And part of that goal is not so much a number of where my target is for my weight, but really it's more more just thinking about my life in the next 10 years and thinking, well, in the next 10 years, if I continue on with where I'm at and I ignore um, sort of my my nutrition, or if I ignore my my eating, what I'm just going to end up doing is overeating too many times, and then my weight will continue to go up even though I'm working out. And I think what would end up happening, I would look back on these years in my life where I'm running a gym and I'm working out, and I would look back and say, well, man, I wasted all that time working out, and my body, I just kept feeding my body and never really got the benefits of the working out in terms of seeing how it looked on my body. So I just encourage you, make sure you come up with some goals, real goals, that things that you would want, not just kind of want, but really want, and whether it be how you look or whether it be a certain health benefits and so forth. I mean, we didn't ask you to go to the store or take your blood pressure and take some of those measurements, but I'd encourage you to get a real good count on your blood pressure and stuff like that as you start, and then as we get done six weeks in, do it again. Just I think you'll see if you lose about um, 5 to 10 pounds through this challenge, you'll realize some of those numbers are improving in a good way for you. So make sure you have some good goals, that something that you really want, and um, that'll help you keep going and wake up the next day and keep going for it. Um, what are the challenges that people have when they do the bite diet, or that I have when I do the bite diet? Part of it is just I think um, giving yourself the grace or freedom to sometimes guess, or sometimes just be be normal. And so part of that is I want to go over what some different methods of counting bites look like, because when I talk to people and they ask me, "Hey, you're losing weight," and they say, "Well, how are you doing it?" And I say, "Well, I'm doing this thing I created called the bite diet," and they start asking me what that is, and they say, "Well, you're counting bites," and they just kind of think I'm crazy or a little nuts to be counting every single bite I put in my mouth. And um, you know, I guess that's true. Maybe I am crazy, but there are some methods I have found for counting bites that have, um, I guess I can kind of hide my craziness when I'm sitting with people and counting in my head, so forth now. But when I first started, um, when I first started the bite diet back in 2016, the tool that really helped me was the bite diet counter, or it's not really a bite diet counter. It's just a simple tally counter, but I called it my bite diet counter. And I just would use this particularly if I'm having a meal still, and if the conversation we're having at a mealtime is significant, then I need not to be thinking of my total number of bites. I just need to be able to push a button every time I bite, or every few times I bite, to give myself something to track. Um, but there's other ways I count, just either counting in my head or whatnot. But one of the ways I count is, for example, if I'm eating a sandwich, I'll eat half the sandwich and count how many bites it took me to eat half the sandwich, and then I simply double that for the other half. Some things that as you get into this, you'll get into your log and you'll realize you eat a lot of the same things every day. Like if you look at my log for um, my bite diet, um, I started having basically the same smoothie or same driven shake every single day, and it was the same amount in my cup. And so, I just decided to keep it the same number each day. So I didn't really change that, but I know it's the same thing I do for breakfast every day. I don't really worry about counting my bites for breakfast. I just write in the same number because it's the same size shake. And that also just frees me up to, like, sometimes you consciously, when you're thinking about your bites, you start thinking about eating a bigger bite or maximizing your bite. And really, that's not really what the bite diet's about. It's really about, the bites are really about taking the average size of your bites. And so it does help me just sort of like feel normal and not worry about counting in those times. But um, yeah, so for the most part, uh, I like to just sort of like break my meal in half and count up to half of my meal and then double it. So you can kind of do that with a plate or whatnot. But there's ways to there's ways to make counting easier. I used to sometimes I would use words that are on the wall, and I'd use the letters that are in the words. So like um, when we were at the camp, there were words on the wall, and so I would take those words, like a word like beautiful, or even like a word printed on the wall like breakfast, and and as I would eat, I would just sort of like take a bite and mentally cross out one of those letters as I kept going through counting. And so then if I got to the end of the word, I'd simply start back at the beginning of the word and keep going through my meal. And you kind of tell like how many bites you would go through because you could say how many times did I go through that word as I counted. It's one way I did it. Another way um, that I simply count is just by keeping a tally. I use the app, but I can use a check mark if I have a piece of paper. Um, and then there's times that you actually forget, and sometimes I'm just so hungry for my meal, I just dive right in and I start eating, and I don't even think about how many bites I've taken. And so, what I tend to do there is I tend to just guess, um, and I've gotten pretty good at guessing just based on the size of my food. And one of the things I've noticed as I got into my bite diet this time around is just how much I had lost sense of the size of my portions as I would portion out my food for my meals. And what I'm going to show you is I'm going to go through my journal that I've entered in through since October 22nd. I'm going to show you kind of how it's played out for me, so you can see kind of what you're going to expect. So, um, in my very first day, I simply record my bites, and you can see I had 32 bites for breakfast, 34 for lunch, and 45 for dinner. And then I had three snacks that day. Um, and so all total, I can't remember, I'm doing math real quick here, but all total, that's almost 150 bites. And so um, then I moved on to the next day, and the next day, of course, I skipped breakfast that day, but I had a smoothie. It's basically my breakfast smoothie. Um, but I had a huge lunch, 53 bites. That was bigger than any of the meals I had the previous day. And I had sort of a second lunch, so almost really 60 bites that day. And then I had a 35 bites for dinner. And so, man, once I had this to actually realize exactly where some of the issues were in my bites and my portion control, that I needed to control my lunchtime because it was out of hand. Um, so as I kind of move on into my bite diet, what I ended up doing, you can see I started controlling my breakfast um, portions, and lunch portion still is the bigger part of the day, and then dinner portion kind of became more normalized. And what I'm going to show you as I scroll down here, you'll see I weigh myself once a week, right? So I weighed myself on the 22nd, weighed myself on the 29th, and each week that was my official weigh period. And then um, typically on a Thursday, what I'll do is I'll probably have a bigger uh, total of bites on a Thursday. Thursday, maybe Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, Monday, I kind of focus more because I know Thursday's coming the next week, and I try to, um, make sure that I can lose weight leading um, up into Thursday when I officially weigh in. But what you can see is I have in the last month, as I look closer to current day status, my bites for breakfast are really stayed the same every day. Lunch has gotten better. I'm no longer having 50 bites or 60 bites for lunch. Dinner is typically around 30 to 35. Um, Sometimes it's less, but you can get a sense that things have started normalizing a little bit more, and um, and you can look at maybe where some of the things I'm eating, and you can say, well, hey, you're having a cookie or you're having ice cream, and I would just say, yeah, I am, and part of that is I'm just um, where is it? I'm controlling how many bites I've had in my day, and so I know I still have some bites to budget later on, and I'm okay with it. But what I won't do typically is I won't have those bites leading up to um, my weigh-in. So this on the 19th was a Thursday, so that would have been when I weighed myself last as my official weigh-in. But you look up to those, looking up to that, there wasn't a whole lot of snacks. There was a cookie there. Um, this was just a short drink. So there was not a lot of snacks leading up from Sunday to Thursday, but there was a time right after that I did like kind of reward myself because my weight continued to drop. And so if my weight hadn't dropped from the previous week, I probably wouldn't have had a cookie. I would have said, "Oh, I still need to be on it and not have that cookie." But see, I had a cookie, I had ice cream, but then as I got into this is now Saturday, Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. I gotta explain Sunday. Sundays for me. I come to the church and I go to church in the morning. I help with. I'm a pastor, so I help with the church in the morning, and so I eat here for lunch, and I'm studying because in the evening I then do a class in the evening, and so I'm studying all day here at the church, and so I try to keep my bites down a little bit, but then I also try to just sort of live off of what I find in the church, mostly because I don't want to spend the time going out to get food. I want to use the time to study and prepare for teaching in the evening. Um, so that's why I found in the freezer corn dogs and a muffin and some extra pasta noodles. So that's about what I had. But not a whole lot of nutrition there for sure. But as we get into further in the diet, as we get into weeks 4 through 6, we can talk about things that we can pull out of our diet to provide some more nutrition, and that's really where we're headed. For now, the first week, it's really not about cutting things out or even about cutting your bites. It's really about eating normal, keeping a good track of what you're eating and when you're eating it and how full you feel. And then as we get into the next week, then we'll start cutting back and adjusting those totals and trying to be a little bit more accountable to what we're doing. As then you'll start seeing uh, your weight start dropping, and you'll hopefully see some results. So that's really what I've been doing. And hey, that's what I got for today. If you've got any other questions, feel free to send it my way, and I'll try to answer it. If I don't answer you directly, and I think it's a good question for everybody, I'll try to create a quick video and make sure everybody can benefit from that. So, all right. Thank you for watching, and thank you for if you're watching this far. Thanks for watching, and we hope you will have a great day and have a great week. All right. Bye.